Hi everybody, Ken Goodman here, and it's time to dip a toe in the software ocean. There's an old saying I like that goes like this: it ain't what you don't know that hurts you, it's what you know that just ain't so. That's often true when you're debugging software, especially when you're debugging your own software. Kind of like editing your own essay, right? I want to take you through a little Lazarus project I was working on and a debugging session where I was confusing myself. Cost myself a good 2 hours or so over a simple issue. First, I'll show you the setup. This is a pretty simple project. I need to control an old piece of test equipment, this old Bellman AC programmable power supply. It's the first time we've tried controlling it over a serial port. The basic idea is I send it commands like set your output voltage and your output frequency and turn the output relay on and off. I send it a command over the serial port, and I expect a reply back to tell me whether it did what I asked, right? The result might be a timeout. I get no reply at all. Maybe I had the wrong serial port or the wrong baud rate or something like that. I might get an error message like this one that just tells me the device received an incorrect command. I might get a normal reply that signals all is well. Looking at the technical manual for this piece of equipment and playing around with it with a serial terminal a little bit, I'm expecting a blank line as a response if all is well, if there are no errors. So what I'm expecting is just carriage return line feed, a 2-character reply. So in my code, I'm just checking for a carriage return line feed to indicate all is well so that I can move on to the next command and stop trying to resend that one. Okay, so I got everything shipshape, got everything to compile correctly, and ran my program for the first time. Nothing was happening. The power supply wasn't even turning on. It was obviously not timing out. I was receiving some kind of replies back because I didn't have a status message on my main window telling me there was a timeout. So just at a glance, it looked like I was getting blank lines back as expected, indicating no errors. So I guess I'd better use the breakpoint capability in my IDE. So I set a couple of breakpoints at the places in my code where I was starting to process replies from the test equipment. And I stopped at one of those breakpoints and hovered over the variable for the reply, and there it was, exactly what I expected to see: carriage return line feed, a blank line. Why wouldn't it step into that if statement and proceed with no errors? Go on to the next command. Instead, the program was acting as if some kind of error had occurred. So I looked at my string comparison comparing the reply against a hard, constant character string line feed string, it should match, right? Back in the old DOS days, I would be using something like this, Turbo Pascal. Everything was nice and simple then. There was only one kind of character string in Turbo Pascal, right? A Pascal string was a count and character, character, character linear array. In the New World Order here, we've got what sort of descended from Whirling Delphi, which is a more complicated Pascal development environment, mainly targeting Windows. So there's multiple types of strings now in Free Pascal, in Lazarus, in Whirling Delphi, and normally you don't want to have to think about what type of string this is. You just compare two strings, pull a string off of some on-screen control, like a list box contents, or in this case, pull in a string that I built by receiving characters one at a time and adding them to the reply string. I just declare them as strings, and I don't worry about which type of string it is, although you can go in and declare them specifically as a Pascal string if you want. Was that really the issue? Who knows? So I stopped at my breakpoint. I'm looking at my reply. It looks exactly like what I'm expecting. Look, there's a character turn line feed. I'm comparing it against character turn line feed. Why doesn't it match? Okay, so let's start looking at the individual characters in the string. Maybe there's some, Unicode character that I'm comparing against an old ASCII character. I don't know. So let's look at what I would think of as, again, I'm falling back into my old Turbo Pascal modes of thought here, and let's look at the first character of the string. PS reply index 1. Right? No. But okay. PS reply index 1 is a character string. PS reply index 2 is a line feed. Perfect. I'm comparing this with character string line feed. Why doesn't it match? And then of course I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not looking at the correct string type when I'm stopped here in the debugger. It might even be that the hover indication, or just evaluating as a string and showing me the string result, maybe it's interpreting it as one type of string, and maybe the debugger, the evaluation of individual characters, is based on a different type of string, the wrong type of string. I don't know. I was just so confused. And I was so sure that what was coming in was character string line feed. Exactly as expected. Finally, actually I should pause here and say, I stopped thinking about it for a day. I just quit for a day. Come back to it tomorrow. For 24 hours, I was absolutely convinced that the debugger was lying to me about something. That either the string expression it was showing me or the individual characters it was showing me did not match what was really going on in the executable code. Finally, I came back and looked at it the next day and said, well, what's the length of the reply? Okay, the debugger was unable to show me the length directly because it, generally speaking, doesn't do function evaluations. It doesn't, emulate a function call there. So it can calculate simple expressions and show you variable values, but not call a function for you. So sometimes you have to stick in some old-fashioned debug stuff in your code. So I added a statement where I calculated the length of the string on a statement that I could break on. I stopped there in my code, in the debugger, and looked at it. The length of the string was not 2 characters as expected, it was 3. Okay, let's take a closer look at the very first thing the debugger showed me. Okay, it's a little screen, it's a tiny little notebook computer I'm looking at, and my eyesight isn't what it used to be. But look, there's a couple of quote marks there at the beginning of that string. I'll show it to you again, and you can look closer and look how dumb I was. There's a space at the beginning of that blank line. So you should always be careful when you're comparing strings. All these nice, convenient, human readable messages. Strings are iffy. You gotta allow a lot of latitude when you're checking string expressions in a piece of software. So, problem solved, just allow some white space at the beginning of that blank line in my comparison. Program works fine. Sometimes the process of debugging involves making a series of tests where you are absolutely sure every step of the way you know what the result is going to be. So you run a test, you see the expected result, you scratch your head, go back further, go to a lower level. You make a test, you're absolutely sure you know what the result is going to be, but it's not. Okay, that's when you really learn something and maybe figure out what you overlooked. I mentioned Turbo Pascal earlier. I didn't know anything about Pascal when I got out of college and was starting to work out in the real world, but I had a friend who was still working on his degree, and he was doing a lot of work in Pascal. I watched him do some editing sessions and got interested in it. If there's anybody out there that would like to learn Pascal, there's a book I came across back in those days that I highly recommend. Oh, Pascal. That's all for now. Good day.